What I believe is that we are actually going towards teams of one, that for any single product or feature or cluster of like goals or things to achieve in a digital product, you will most likely have one person responsible to ideate, to validate, to design, and then to also build it. And if you can do all three, I think you will be able to build products for years to come with AI.
Oh my God, Dios mío, this is, oh my God, Dios mío.
Welcome back to Hotfix. Today is just Stefan and myself back in front of the mic. We spent a lot of time using AI in our daily jobs right now. I think it has fully landed in software companies today. There's very, very few companies who are not using AI operationally or nor in their product. And we just wanted to discuss where AI is today, where it could be in a year, and talk about how we think the whole industry is going to change. Today, we're having teams of the classic cross-functional teams of one product manager, one UX designer, 3 to 5 engineers, and looking at how good AI is today at writing code. This will probably shift dramatically. It's probably not necessary anymore to have agile rituals, to have plannings, to have stand-ups, because most of these rituals are just for transferring information between product managers, UX designers, and engineers to ultimately ship something which then happens a couple of weeks after. If this information transfer isn't necessary anymore, if product managers can, or if there's only one engineer that you have to exchange information with, and the engineer is prompting 4 different AI agents to actually develop the software, then I think that how delivery works, how software development works, how close and fast iteration cycles are, this will change dramatically.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a point. I believe it will play out a little different though. So what I believe is that we are actually going towards teams of one, that for any single product or feature or cluster of like goals or things to achieve in a digital product, you will most likely have one person responsible to ideate, to validate, to design, and then to also build it. So because, and why do I believe this? So if I today, for example, play with products like Lovable or V0, I think as a product leader, I think there's very different product leaders with different skills. And one of the skills I never really had was like great design skills. It's something that I always lacked, and I admired other product leaders that had this background and had these skills. So I usually sucked at like showing with like good design what a product should look like. Now if I play with Lovable or V0, I can suddenly create quite great looking and feeling products that feel like they have like a thought out user experience, because I can describe it with my words. I can describe what this experience should be like, but I'm not good at bringing it onto like a paper. So this skill is already, even though I don't have this background, I don't have the skill, I'm suddenly able to do it. Same with code, with V0, Lovable, Cursor, all these tools, I'm suddenly able to produce the product as well. I'm suddenly able to create something actually working, not just a click dummy in Figma or an idea in a document or a way to achieve a goal, but an actual product that can be used by users. And my background, I'm very technical for a product manager, yes, but I believe that it's getting less and less and less of a barrier to actually achieve this. So I am now able to do all of this and create things. And I believe every product manager or engineer or designer will converge in that direction, that they have tools like this available, and in 5 years from now they will be infinitely better. 5 years ago there was no comparison, there was nothing like it, and the LLMs were there, I don't know, 3 years ago with ChatGPT starting, right? I think it's uncomparable, and I think we are already seeing people and startups working this way, hiring product engineers that are people that do these kinds of things, that think about what they build, validate it, build it. Maybe there's still a designer in play, but I believe now from all three angles, you have the chance to acquire the necessary skills from like the other pieces. You need to be somewhat technical. You need to have somewhat of an understanding of what good user experience feels like. And you need to have somewhat of an understanding of how to build software that is valuable to someone. And if you can do all three, I think you will be able to build products for years to come with AI. If not, if you're hyper specialized and you don't like the other pieces, I think you will be having a very, very hard time to work in 5 years.
Yeah, I just think so. What you're saying is it won't be even 3 persons, it might be only 1 person.
Correct. I think the specialization aspect is moving away. Or maybe it's like 2 or 3 people in a team, but they have the same job. I think they lose this hyper specialization that we have right now for designer, product manager, engineer. We're all building software, right? If I would explain it to my parents, they wouldn't understand the difference between me and an engineer and a designer, right? It's very artificial because it's so hyper specialized, because we need these hyper specialized skills. To someone on the outside, it's people building software. And I believe it will actually converge to this people building software kind of persona.
Yeah. So the reason I think why it's not going to be only 1 person is now after playing around a bit with vibe coding tool, my first impression is the new limitation is not going to be skill. I think that's true, but it's still going to be time. Today, what product managers do is extremely time intensive. They are talking to customers, they are talking to stakeholders, they are collecting all of this different data, they are trying to make sense of it. They're getting alignment for the roadmaps that they created. And for all of these tasks, I don't see a lot of efficiency gains with AI. I think they all still need to happen. Today I saw a study why AI hasn't taken too many jobs yet. And this is because AI isn't good working in messy environments. And this is exactly where product managers live. And yes, a product manager might be capable using AI and technical understanding. And I completely agree that, and this is actually quite contrary, I would not have believed that product managers have to become more technical again. Because that really enables them to build products without any dependencies. But the limitation for them to actually then go ahead, build something, test it, run, maybe also design experiments, because that's also still what you probably have to do. Doing all of that with the same amount of time, with the same 8 hours a day has, I think that won't work. And that's why you probably need a couple of persons on a team to actually deliver value and solve problems. So we're saying on the one hand, product managers have to become more technical, but on the other hand, everyone in the team has to become more generalized.
It's weird that you need to find some like, I think you need to build up like a threshold of understanding in like various fields, right? I think it's already that case for product managers today. Like a PM that has no understanding of financials will not be a great PM. If they don't understand like how ARR works, how LTV works, how like any of those like financial metrics work, like how the mechanics of it work, like what influences ARR, what influences lifetime value of a customer, how can you change that, right? It will be hard for you to be a great PM without having this understanding, but you don't need to be as deep as your CFO or whoever is like deep into calculating the EBITDA of the business. Probably not needed. So it's already the case, right? It's just that this technical understanding in terms of code was never a necessity. It was always good to have, I think, because you were able to have like conversations that others weren't able to have. But now it's getting, I think it becomes a necessity because, and here is my argument towards the time argument. If this was the case, that it's not possible, how do companies operate that don't have the resources to have like this split? Many companies don't hire their first designer until they're like, I don't know, 30 people or something like this. Or they don't hire their first product manager until they're like 15 people. In the beginning, it's like a founder doing all kinds of activities, doing maybe marketing and designing the product and thinking about the strategy and doing everything like this. So I believe the time is probably not the issue, because I think product managers are not just doing work that is extremely impactful. Yes, some of the things they are doing, very impactful. Other things, probably not as much. And I believe the things that are just not creating value enough, or that are replaceable, or that are optimizable in terms of time needed in order to fulfill this task, they will very drastically move. So I think, like, for example, you mentioned data analysis, right? Data analysis, I think, is not very, I think it's very, I think most of the time you spend, or at least I spend when I analyze data, is not just interpreting results. It's actually, I don't know, pulling together different metrics, different data points, trying to understand what has an impact on what is influencing what, is there correlation, is there causation, between like 15 different views and Looker we now use for a company I work with. And now this is most of the time I spend when I try to analyze data. But this is like 95% of this time is non-value generating. Only the 5% when I finally found the view that tells me what I need to understand. And I think this is what is getting removed, right? And this will inevitably, like, it must go. It's useless time. So, and I think if you get rid of these things, or like when running experiments or interviews, I believe, like, whenever planning interviews, 90% of the time for running these interviews is like finding the right customers to talk to, talking like customer success, to arrange these kinds of meetings, and then to talk to like 17 different people to make sure that, I don't know, are they currently at churn risk? Yes, they are. Okay, so we shouldn't talk to them about some random product idea. Okay, so they are not at churn risk. Okay, let's talk to them. Who are the people that we can actually talk to within that account? And like, there's these like 17 steps that you need to go through to have this valuable hour in a conversation with a customer. And I think this is yet again time that is wasted, so to say, right? And I think, like, if you can get rid of all these pieces, and I think we will in the next years, we will probably have product managers that have the time to do other stuff that is very valuable. So I think it's just this most valuable work from like PMs, engineers, and designers will be aggregated into like this product engineering, designing kind of person. I just don't believe that that there's any upside in splitting it. So I believe it's because right now I see it so often, like from this product leadership perspective, that I have this feeling that between product design and engineering, so much information is lost, even in this small group working together, and so much like misunderstandings and politics, people having ambitions that are different to the other people within their team. And I think there's so much conflict that is fine to be having, right? And like any organization, you have this, but if you can remove it from this, we want to build something valuable for our customers, probably a great idea. And probably have like 10 people work on 10 different sub parts of your product, instead of having these team structures that are maybe very artificial to actually do this. I think if engineers today would be able to do all of this, like the validation, the designing, etc., the role of a designer and the product manager would have never been invented. Because there's just no reason in software to have these people. They are there because it wasn't possible that engineers have the time to talk to customers or understand all their needs or think about what a great experience looks like, but rather they had to spend so much time getting this deep technical understanding of frameworks, and I don't know why our front end doesn't refresh within the time that we wanted here, and then you have to investigate it for 3 days. But if you don't, you have time to actually talk to people and understand what they want, and then you can just do it. You talk to someone, you understand the problem, you think of something, you maybe prompt a product that helps you get there, and then you ship this to the customer without 17 meetings and 3 alignments and all this waste.
So very often when someone asks me who is not from the software industry what a product manager does, I explain it like this, that software development is extremely complex, and that makes it very easy to spend too much time with yourself. So that you just get lost in the details, and the product manager is here to remind everyone, hey, there's still a customer, and that's what who we're building for. So maybe you're right. If building software gets less complex, then that also reduces the necessity for a PM.
Yeah, and I think and if you listen, right, I'm not saying that you should be worried to not have a job in 5 years. What I'm saying is that you need to change your perception of that job, or you will not be happy with what this job will become, right? I think this job will change. It is already changing, and I think we're seeing it now. I think we're seeing this shift. I think it's weird, right? Because there was always these buzzwordy things where everyone said, this will change all the industries, and I don't know. I think like 10 years ago, it was AI already, but it was pretty much a joke. Then 5 years ago, there was blockchain and everything needed to be on the blockchain. And that was a lot of crap in the end, right? I think there was not really transformation to all industries there. But here, I think we see very, very rapid transformation in so many areas. And I don't know, I think for software, this will be very unpredictable in the next years. Because I think what the one sentence you said, right? If creating software becomes less complex, that inevitably means the value of software decreases. It's easier to create. Others can create it. A competitor can spin up in no time, meaning I think it will be quite interesting to understand or see, like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. Yeah.
The whole build versus buy debate is going to be different.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is changing. Like right now, you shouldn't probably spend 10K a year for your to-do company to-do app, right? That shows everyone what they're doing and what they're working on, because you can probably build this yourself in no time. Like those very simplistic SaaS tools, I think there's no value in them anymore in almost no time. I think we're not there today that you just say, please build me a, I don't know, issue tracking tool so that I can track my issues and I don't have to pay for Jira. Not there yet, but might be there in a very short time frame. And then suddenly these tools they're still very valuable to like enterprises that have super complex processes and where it takes like 7 years to replace a tool. Sure, it won't change there. But for startups, scale-ups, like mid-sized companies that can change a tool in a week or two, yeah, I think it will be really hard to consistently sell them software.
Yeah. Maybe quickly back to the skill debate of how do product managers, maybe also UX designers, need to skill up in order to still be relevant in the future. I think in the product operating model, so in companies where they work in trios, the best trios already have a very equal like distribution of work. It's not only the product manager who discovers problems. It's not only the UX designers who build quick prototypes or quick wireframes. It's not only the engineer who decides or has good ideas on how to change the architecture. The strongest trios, everybody's equal and everybody can go into the domain of another person. So maybe these strong trios, they are also well set up for the era of AI.
For sure. I think they will prevail for quite some time, right? And I think what I'm saying, the future I painted is not the in 3 years future where there is one person doing everything, but it's maybe the 10-year future. And those trios that already are comfortable sharing their domain with others will be better off than those trios that are hyper isolated in terms of, oh no, I don't know if you have caught yourself saying this is not my job in the last months, you might have a problem, right? Because it maybe should be your job, or whenever you're thinking about who owns, I don't know, like thinking about AI in our company, right? This is, I think, a question that many companies are thinking about. Who is allowed to think about how we can integrate machine learning or integrate like this new technology? And every single person in a trio should be like, I am allowed to think about doing that, right? Like the designer should think about like, how could we like make the experience of our product much better by doing A, B, and C, like this technical thing. Tech should be allowed to think this, because they might think, we could, I don't know, improve several like very technical things by 10x because we change technology. And product managers, because they think about, we might be able to delight our users in a very different way. We might be able to monetize things in a different way. But all of those three people can also think about the other things. A product manager might be able to say, I think we can delight our users and make the user experience better if we integrate this, I don't know, natural language piece. Or maybe a designer has an idea about some, I don't know, more technical piece of the product, and they can also voice that idea. So I think, as I said, right, I think it's, as you will anyways need to build up those skills, I think it's good if you get comfortable thinking about improving your product across the spectrum of like those three areas.
Yeah. Or let's look at the other extreme of how some other product teams on the negative side operate, the product owner model, who receive a request or who receive a requirement from their stakeholders. Hint, they could already put that also into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
The product manager writes something up, they hand it over to the UX designer. The UX designer creates, according to the specifications, to the requirements, screen designs. Hint, this could be also AI. And then they hand it over to the engineers who breaks it down into tasks and then deliver them. And then on a deadline, it's delivered, job done, moving on to the next requirement. And this sounds like a pipeline that is not very valuable anymore, or the skills that are needed to execute on this pipeline, because ultimately you don't know if you actually delivered value to customers, you delivered value for your stakeholders, and also that is not certain.
And I want to put a little thought experiment to you now, because I think what I think is a bit weird there, or counterintuitive, is that in the very short term or to the midterm, these companies will feel like that this model is really great with AI, because it is optimized for shipping, for putting things out quickly, for building stuff. And if you operate in that model, the model is amplified way better than the other model by automation and by AI. If you can create requirements and write them 10 times faster, 100 times faster, 1,000,000 times faster, you will just create a lot more. If you're able to design screens 1,000,000 times faster, you will simply create more screens. And if you're able to write code 1,000,000 times faster, you will write more codes. So AI in the short term will turn those feature factories in really well-run feature factories. Like those companies, they will build like they've never built before. But if they've built mostly shit in the past, they will just build a lot of shit very quickly now, which can work. And I believe there is, I believe we just don't know yet, right? I think we don't know what, like if you're able to just ship so quickly, like maybe 100 times as quick as you are today or last year. Maybe today is already different to last year. Maybe with a model like this, you are suddenly able to ship 100 times the amount of stuff with the same team that you were a couple of years ago. Maybe it works out. Maybe you can just iterate so quickly on anything that you can just brute force your way into a great product. No discovery, no deep thought, no understanding, simple trial and error, because you can just build so rapidly.
Yeah, I don't think, and that is getting back to your points that SaaS applications, non-enterprise SaaS applications, are going to be hard to defend. I disagree, because the real valuable part is not the forms on databases. It's not the code that executes the software. It's the business logic that has been built around in all of these different details, based on countless user interactions, based on countless user interviews, domain knowledge, industry expertise, that made the product that it is today. Even though the code base might be easy to copy, but all the thoughts that went into how this user experience is designed, when this feature should come in and solves a specific problem, for example. I think that this is still necessary, and this still requires countless interactions between product managers and customers. And this will also not be the case in feature factories. stakeholders very often don't in the interest of the customer, but in the interest of themselves.
Mhm.
Sales is incentivized by selling more, and they probably won't prioritize the initiative that makes the product better for customers, but makes the product better for sales. And I think that it's the product manager's job to take all of these insights from all of these different stakeholders and actually make a picture themselves to ultimately prioritize. And that's why I believe also a very fast feature factory will never be successful.
But in that model, aren't you inevitably losing if you are the one doing all the talking to the customers and doing all the innovation? If I, for example, today, and it won't work great, but if I go into any product that is like not super complex, but like, let's say small to medium complexity, take screenshots of every single page, every single interaction, put them into my favorite code builder and said, please build this for me. It will maybe work to some degree. And I think in a year, it will work much better than it will today. And maybe I don't have to put screenshots of every interaction, but maybe I can take a video, or maybe at one point I can just give it the URL, say, please click yourself through the entire application, do every single possible combination of tasks you can do in this product, and then copy it for me. Can't I just buy whatever SaaS software there is out there for, I don't know, $50 a month, copy it, and then try to sell to the same customer?
Yes, but then what you won't be copying, and that's what makes product-led companies today, I think, defensible from non-product companies, is all of the operations that this company has in order to develop the product further from this point. So if you look at any company, at any successful SaaS company that you would like to copy, you have to assume that the expected value the product delivers tomorrow is better compared to today. Otherwise, they would not have engineers employed and product managers employed, or they wouldn't do their jobs. And so you would always copy a state that is worse than a state tomorrow.
Correct, but if my model runs 24/7 for cheap, whenever they make a change, I can make the change. No.
Okay, so you would always copy them.
And this is what I'm asking. Like, I'm just saying that if this is possible, someone will try it, right? Someone will do it. And I think like maybe that's not even something that a company just copies a company. Maybe it's simple enough to just do this for 1,000 companies, copy every single one of those SaaS companies that has like a free trial out there, just build what they have for cheap and try to sell it for cheaper. And then you just, I don't know, cut the price in half for maybe a slightly worse product. Maybe it's slightly worse because you're maybe a week or 2 months behind, but you sell the exact same experience for half the price. Obviously, there is a lot of logic that is not so easy to copy from a UI, right? There's like backend logic and complex data transformations and whatnot. So there is obviously more work to it than just copying whatever someone else builds. But if just copying gets simpler and simpler and simpler, and let's say 5 years from now, infinitely simpler, I think it could just lead to the spiral where it's like a race to the bottom in terms of what someone is willing to pay for software. Because if the baseline is just, you can just copy whatever someone else builds, you don't have 1,200 people on staff that you need to pay a salary every month. You can just do it with, I don't know, 2 people. You can sell this piece of software for 5% of what this big company sells it for. And even if it's just worse, I think most customers might be happy with a much cheaper product that is slightly worse.
I think this is a highly optimistic view of what AI will be capable in the future. Also, let's take a SaaS company that is not overly complex, but also not super simple, something like Calendly.
Yeah, Calendly or Asana, for example, was what I was thinking, right? Like task management.
I think Asana might be a bit more complex. They have a lot of different modules and automations and workflows and stuff. But Calendly is literally a booking page with a couple of databases after it, I assume. I'm definitely oversimplifying here, but even a software like this is not. Also, I think it's not possible to rebuild this using AI also by one person. Also, if the person is highly technical.
I disagree.
Today,
I think someone technically can rebuild Calendly right now in a week, like the core functionality that makes it what it is, integrating payments, integrating everything. I think everything Calendly has is distribution. This is the leg up that Calendly has, because I think there's like probably 500 tools that do that like have like this meeting scheduling possibility that are actively competing with Calendly. Because even before AI, it wasn't terribly hard to copy it. So I believe what they have is distribution. They have brand, they have distribution, they have all these things that are so much harder to copy. And I think this is also like in this future that I described, right? You will not have distribution. You will have to somehow let everyone know that you rebuilt this product and you are selling it for cheap. So where I'm getting to is that the value of creating software and building software will decrease, while the value of being able to distribute software will increase. And I think this is maybe something that everyone building right now will feel somewhat in their personal life, because it will be reflected in salaries. Right now, probably the best paid people in software companies are engineering, product, and maybe to some degree sales. And then if you have others like marketing, customer success, they are not usually paid in the same levels that these positions are paid. But it's simple, right? Because it's super hard to, I don't know, for example, become an expert in like complex, like as a database engineer for like a complex data product. You will always be paid really well right now, because it's so hard to find someone else to do this just as well as you can. If it becomes much simpler, and if suddenly everyone gets tools into their hands to execute quite well on that skill, the market value for that skill decreases. So, and I believe that the market value for people highly specialized in some area of building software will decrease. I think you will only be able to be paid top of the market if you keep an edge over everyone else that uses AI. Meaning you will be able to, you need to be more technical, you need to be more customer focused, understand what they need, understand how to create value with a product, better understanding of design principles. And I think now the bar will rise very rapidly with AI, because suddenly having mediocre skills in all of those areas will be so easy to emulate. Where AI fails is being excellent in all of these areas or some of those areas, as we see with code generation tools, Lovable V0, whatever. They are good at doing what mediocre devs could produce. They are not good at creating what outstanding developers could produce. And they're not good at building something that is scalable to thousands or millions of people. And I think most developers couldn't build something that is scalable to millions of people. There is some that can, and those are paid big money because they understand these things. And I think the bar is just, it will be raised very, very quickly. That's why this skill debate is so important, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. But maybe quickly back to the Calendly case. I started using Calendly for organizing the logistics around this podcast here. And for me, initially, it was an event booking page that ultimately tells me who I have meeting with. But what it turns out to be is a digital secretary. I think 10 years ago, someone would have hired a person to do the job of what Calendly does. And the reason why this creates so much value is, I think they must have a great product team, because there's so much business logic in this booking page, how you can configure it, connect two different calendars, say, please only book one session per week, only on a Friday afternoon. And we both have our jobs, and it still manages to make podcast bookings so efficient that we don't have to care about it at all. And that's so worth the $16 per month that that the value is much more than just the forms and databases that it provides. And on the other hand, I think if you want to build a software that, like Calendly, that where you really run critically operations on, someone has to understand the architecture of the code behind it. And then having one person who can create all of this amazing business logic, and on the other hand, understands the code architecture in detail, I think this cannot be one person.
And I think that makes sense, right? But here's the problem, right? I think for someone like us, there's no point in building it ourselves if we pay $16 per person, like now 32 euros or whatever we pay, right? For a company with 1,000 employees, if they pay this per user and they pay like 16K a month to Calendly, it suddenly becomes very attainable to make the calculation. If we can build this, if we can vibe code this for ourselves, we have some engineer working on this, like some product engineer, person that understands our business, understands what we need from this product. And you can suddenly build something very custom to your business that is also much, much more like built around your specific business. I think this is the danger for Calendly, that those companies, they make the most money with, that are like not the enterprise with 100,000 employees that just doesn't change tools, and not the 2 people podcast that only pays $30 because we wouldn't invest 2 weeks of our time to rebuild Calendly for our to save 32 euros. I think that just doesn't pay off. But the company that pays 15K a month, they will be, I think, in a position where they think, we might be able to build this ourselves. We might be having this one person, this one product engineer, designer hybrid that can just rebuild Calendly for ourselves, save ourselves some money. I think this is where it will be hard for these companies.
Let's maybe quickly get back to the present again and talk about how PMs today can use AI already to become more efficient. And I wanted to share a little story here. So we were recently building actually a pretty complex new feature. It's one of our flagship features. A lot of customers have asked for it. It's also a huge problem for them. But it's not easy from a user experience perspective. And I spent a lot of time with V0 recently. I wrote a couple hundreds of prompts for a small hobby project that I was building. But for this specific case, I just wrote one prompt for how I would imagine a user journey for this product or for this feature. It delivered a perfect prototype that I could immediately send to a couple of people in the company, get their feedback. A UX designer immediately understood, okay, that's actually a good idea to do it like that. She took the idea, developed it further, and I think that's already a real life impact on how product managers, how product management can change today that many people underestimate.
Yeah, I agree. And I think tools like these are, I think this is what they are currently perfect for, right? Like these quick prototypes for flows, for things that don't need deep integration into like business logic, deep integration into data and 17 things happening in the background. It's perfect, right? And I've been talking with PM in my team recently as well about this exact thing. Like, should we even go into like the trio to talk about a prototype that we want to build, or should I just spin up V0 and create a prototype myself and then bring this to the trio, and then together with engineering and design, we actually go deeper and we think about what we want from like the entire experience, and we don't start from zero anymore in this discussion, but the PM might come with a prototype, and it changes the dynamic, right? Before it was like a Notion doc that a PM may have come with, and then the designer would have left, and then after a week all of them met again, and then they had a prototype based on a Notion doc the PM wrote. But there was almost no need for the designer to having to wait for the PM's Notion doc, then to work on it on a week, and then come back with a prototype. And then the real work starts. Also for the designer, the real value starts in creating different variants and creating, like, I don't know, prototypes to show to customers, and then 3 different like design experiments to then run in like calls. And so this is where the value starts for the UX designer, not for a week on creating a prototype that the PM could have easily created with V0.
Yeah, exactly. And also the possibility to create that it creates to then immediately validate with customers. Hey, do you get this flow? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Iterate on that again. And then, so actually the quality of there's no excuse that the quality of user experience not dramatically increases.
Correct.
Generally, we should see SaaS applications with much better user experience, much more intuitive user experience in a couple of years.
But here's something, like I read something very interesting by a designer on LinkedIn the other day that said the opposite, that for the last 9 months, all new startups look the same, exactly the same kind of buttons, the same kind of sidebars, the same kind of controls, everything's the same.
But I wouldn't say that this is necessarily bad. I mean, that means that there's a best practice and cost companies are adopting.
And I'm not sure, right? Because like I think it comes from the point that V0, for example, they use like a design system under the hood that always creates the same buttons, always creates the same like kind of controls, and then Lovable has the same. They all have like these principles under the hood that they use, so that the LLM doesn't have to think about how should a button look like.
But I was using SaaS applications very often where I thought, oh man, this should not have been that great.
But it may opens up a place where you can differentiate yourself in the future through a creative interface that isn't like all the others. I think this is like, if everything is built by AI and everything looks the same and everything's boring, so to say, and you create an experience that is exciting, that does something that isn't usual, I think this could be an opportunity if we go down that route.
Yeah. I still think that the biggest differentiator for companies in the future is going to solve a customer problem, a large customer problem, extremely efficiently. And
of course,
and this is not going to be something that AI does, will be capable of doing without extra human input. If it's, I want to understand how I can, I don't know, reduce my customer churn, then there's still going to be a lot of human work and a lot of human heavy lifting research, talking to customers, understanding them. Who is my user? A very good example is today so we're building a software for accountants, and it's for me the first time that I have to build a software for somebody who is using digital products very different compared to me. It requires a lot of empathy, but this empathy is also only possible if I try to be very close to customers and talk to them very regularly. If I don't talk to a customer for 2 weeks, I see myself forgetting who our customers actually are. So I see that subsequently I'm falling back into assuming that someone who is like me is using our product. That's not the case. And that's probably something that AI is not very good in.
Yeah, and I'm just afraid to make these predictions, because I think like 3 years ago, we would have both been wrong what would be possible today.
Yeah, that's true.
And also I think everyone thought that like those simple, and I'm doing air quotes here on purpose, physical jobs will be replaced first. Like you will we will have software engineers and designers and everything for the next 100 years, but no one standing at the checkout counter for the supermarket or greeting you at a restaurant, and it will all be automated. And that is not the case. So it seems that we were really wrong about what AI is good at. 5 years ago, we would have not even dreamt about it, like that where we are today. 3 years ago, when ChatGPT first released, we wouldn't have thought that in this time frame it would have been doing these things and like been applied to all these things. Right? It seemed like a nice chatbot or whatever, right? And you could ask it questions and it knows things from, I don't know, whatever data it's trained on, and not that it actually can execute tasks and write code and, I don't know, look at websites and do things with that information. I think that I understand it too little to know what it can do in 3 years or 5 years. I've just turned into a person that now believes a lot is possible after seeing the last 3 years turn out so different than what I would have thought. And I just believe that the next 3 years will be just as crazy.
So what really changed about my daily mindset is that I'm not afraid of almost any task anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like with some work and AI on my side, I'm capable of doing almost anything. I mean, obviously I won't be able to migrate our production database from something to something, but all of these daily tasks, when it's about, for example, learning something extremely domain specific about our customers, might have been hard before, but very easy today. And that just, and I think that's exactly something a product manager needs to have, which is extremely helpful for product managers. It's very hard to define what a product manager should do in the daily work because it's so different every day. And it's also so different from one company to the other. And generative AI and ChatGPT helps enormously with tackling tasks that even no one has tackled before. Yeah. Also, maybe the question about domain expertise that we already had is maybe getting less important. It's very easy to learn a domain today using ChatGPT.
I think it's much easier to learn anything today. So I think just knowing things in general becomes less valuable, or having skills, specialized skills, just becomes less important because it's much easier to learn them when you need them. Right now, or the last 25 years in this digital age, you had to build up a lot of deep understanding and skills so that at the time that you needed them, you had them. You couldn't learn how to build, I don't know, a SaaS product whenever you wanted to start building a SaaS product. You should have known already before, or it would have been very hard. There's still a lot of founders that may have started without any technical knowledge, didn't take on a technical co-founder and somehow succeeded, but it's a rare exception. But now learning something became much simpler.
Also for you, I mean, you also work for a company in prop tech.
Yes.
Also, you must have been afraid when you started. You must have been afraid about learning the new domain, digging into it. And would be also easier today, probably.
I think it definitely is. When I started, it's now 2 years ago, pretty much exactly. And it already started where I was able to use LLMs to actually start learning about it. So I was less afraid. And I felt like that I'm at a point where I can do it. And I think it also in the beginning helps you to fake it, quote unquote, until you understand it. Like, I don't know, talking to a customer, like writing an email, and suddenly they use like 7 vocabularies that you don't know, and you just put them into ChatGPT and it explains to you what it means and what's the context and everything. Suddenly you know. And before you would have been afraid to ask someone, right? And now it was quite easy already when I started. It's much easier now, 2 years later. And now I've seen like tools that you have opened during calls that help you, right? Like I think there was like one startup that had this slogan like cheat on everything or cheat on anything. And it's just, you can open it up during like a meeting, during like an interview, a test, like if it's digitally, and it just listens to the conversation and tells you what to say, tells you how to answer, tells you like the meaning behind things, and just helps you cheat on anything, which is great, I think, because there's just no inherent value in knowing something or finding out that someone else knows something that another person doesn't. Because like if you're not using things like ChatGPT or whatever is your personal favorite like LLM today, you're anyways 100 times stupider than everyone that does use it. There's just no way in competing with something that has universal knowledge, accessible at any time without needing to. Before you had like to have the skill of Googling, at least you would have need to understand like what to write, which question to ask, how to write it, how to find what's valuable. That's also gone. Now you just write a sentence, it will figure out what you mean. If it didn't figure it out, you just follow up with another follow-up question. And after 3 chat interactions, you can know anything. Or at least sound like you know it really well. I think I could answer an email to an astrophysicist about a topic I've never talked about, sounding like I have really deep understanding in astrophysics without knowing a single word. and just through
Probably.
ChatGPT and having it help me write this.
Yeah. Okay, Stefan.
Thanks.
Thank you.